Hello, nerds for humanity. We are back doing a live stream. Today, I have Michael Maxsetti back in the Nerd Zone. He was on, like I want to say, a couple years ago. We were talking about the Common Sense Party and political reform, and he's not giving up. In fact, he's really putting on the boots and getting to work, running for Congress. So, welcome back, Michael. How are you today?
I'm hearing an echo here. Is there a reason for that?
There is. Let me just do a little audio adjustments here. Now, you could have another tab open. Do you have another tab open where...
That must be it.
Yeah. If you're also watching the live stream while we're streaming, there'll be a little bit of a...
Yeah, that's what I have. All right, we're square now.
All right, love it. Wouldn't be a live stream without some little technical adjustments up front. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
Good, Tom. Thanks. It's nice to be back, and thanks for the invitation. Yeah, we met first when I was on your show with the Common Sense Party, trying to help launch that, and then when we did an alliance agreement with the Forward Party, and we're moving that forward, and so it's nice to be back. I know you've been in this sphere since Andrew Yang got started for his presidential run.
Oh my God, it feels like ages ago. Yeah, this channel started when he ran for the big job, and unfortunately didn't make it all the way, but I ended up keeping the channel going, and it's been a delight to, luckily, and I've been a beneficiary of a lot of our longtime viewers who've been supporting the channel, and so I keep it going. And I do remember you convincing me to switch my party registration to the California Common Sense Party, so I did that. And then lately I was just involved in the California Ranked Choice Voting Initiative in Santa Clara County, where the county is considering implementing RCV for local elections. It's still in process. It's the wheels of progress take a while to turn, but we're going at it.
It's unfortunate that the wheels of progress take so long in today's world, when we know that there are good tools available to modernize our governance.
Yeah, it is. With RCV, I was at the county supervisors, finance and operating group committee meeting, where they were reviewing the proposal to implement RCV in my county. And it was so interesting how there was really very strong opposition to it in the public commentary section. And I wonder, was everybody super informed? Because to me, ranked choice voting seems like a much more representative, robust way to kind of capture the full intent of the electorate. And I think it reduces all of the polarization, not all of it, but a lot of the polarization that happens in campaigns. But there were definitely people who were really angry about it. And
well, that makes the point that one of my campaign focuses is on the issue of career politicians, and anyone who is in these leadership of these parties, they have done and will continue to do anything they can to stop, not just slow down, but stop the implementation of any tool that would give power to the people and take it away from their ability to control the outcomes of the system. And ranked choice voting, one of my big things that I want to promote, and in promoting, is citizens' assemblies. I'm tired of people's, they say, we want to hear your voice. People speak up, people go to demonstrations, they do all kinds of amazing effort, and it's ignored. They give nothing better than lip service to it. And that has to change. and the use of citizens' assemblies. Petaluma, up near you, is a great example of a citizens' assembly. And I think it's 124 countries that use them in various levels that would make meaningful engagement with those who choose to in the political process, so that we don't have so many unintended consequences from the laws that do get passed. Because these career politicians in Congress, over 70%, or roughly 70% of our 435 congressional representatives are trained as attorneys, legally trained to be an advocate for a side of an issue to win. And they have been trained in techniques to manipulate the audience, the jury, the judge, and now if it's in politics, the public, to manipulate the facts. And with the speech and debate clause, when they're actually in Congress, this is an important element I'd like the audience to understand, because it's never talked about. The speech and debate clause gives it's in the Constitution, gives total immunity for anything said while they're on the floor of Congress or doing their official duties in a committee. And we got a huge example during the congressional hearings when we know those people in opposition to those candidates for positions, there were out and out blatant lies after lie after lie that they would say from the podium, and then they're used as sound bites to be taken out to their audience through the controlled narrative to their people on their side of an issue. And people look at it and go, oh, well, that person's in Congress or Senate. They must know what they're talking about. They would never lie to us. They have access to all this information, and they knowingly use that legal protection to falsify statements that can be used to attack an individual, a person being interviewed on a congressional committee, etc. And those are the kinds of things that need to be addressed. And that's part of my focus in running for Congress. But I could get off on this because I've been in this for 15 years, dedicated my life to this effort, and going to continue.
Michael, I'm not really familiar with the reform or proposal to implement citizens' assemblies. Can you elaborate a little more, like how that works?
Oh, well, it's not being proposed yet, but it's something I want to propose instantly and use it in my district for any major piece of legislation. Quite simply, a citizens' assembly is, there's an issue. It can be a local issue, it could be a national issue, or and the people responsible for the laws would draft a law. Then citizens' assemblies can be made up from small groups of 10 or 12 to bigger groups of hundreds, that depending upon what law, who it would impact, they do a blind demographic profile of the constituents that would be affected by this law, and then invite them in big numbers, if they're interested, to be able to come and participate in a citizens' assembly. They get paid a stipend for it. It can be something that could be done over a weekend. It might be something that takes months, but they'll bring in experts on an issue from various sides to present facts on it. And then the group of citizens who are going to be affected by it, who are now representative of the real people, can debate, discuss, and vote, and they'll come out of the end result is they will make a very definitive recommendation on the legal policy, that's the laws. And then the representatives, like in my situation as a congressman, I would then be beholden to follow that on an integrity level, unless there was something very major that didn't get brought out between the process ending. So a citizens' assembly would truly engage the citizens to pass laws so we could get literally 90, 95% or more approval on a law, because the unintended consequences and all the nuances have been dissected by the actual people and help craft final legislation that gets passed into law.
Oh, that's super interesting. It has a ring of a little bit closer to a direct democracy. I had the opportunity to live in Switzerland as an expat for a few years, and I was always impressed by how informed my neighbors were about every piece of legislation being considered, because they voted on it. It wasn't really, kind of like a congressional representative model. It was the people that, at the ground level that made decisions on as specific things as whether or not they wanted to increase the military budget by X percent or Y percent. I'd be curious for the assembly model. How do you ensure that the people in those assemblies are really representative of the majority of the district? Like, what happens if you get a bunch of folks who are like super activist types and nothing, they're acting with best intentions, but they're kind of self-selected as the types that are really eager, and then the kind of majority doesn't really follow it, and then they diverge.
It's a great question. There are some great tools that are used through a lottery process, through AI they use to select who gets invited to then be put into a lottery. So it's really done well. I'm going to go back to the American Democracy Summit, which will be my third time at it. It used to be called the Unrigged Summit, but in 2 weeks, in the middle of May rather, so it's about a month, I'll be in Phoenix for 3 days. And one of the big parts of that will be the people who have been overseeing these and developing these both internationally and in the United States. But I would encourage our audience, so we don't take too much more time, they can Google citizens' assemblies, search it, and go in and get the details of how that is done to protect exactly to the problem that could occur, so that you don't get a powerful, loud group of people that can dominate over a more quiet minority, etc. So we truly do create a representative, a republic, and yet introduce a far more democratic citizens into the process.
I love it. So I was looking at your district before our call. It looks like a pretty evenly split district. It's not hardcore blue or red. So tell me a little bit about the district and in your decision to run, and how did you decide what party to run as your affiliation?
Well, so that was a lot of questions there. So let me first talk about the district. This seems to be a perfect storm for someone like myself. It is, and every district, for our audience's information, every district in the nation for the House of Representatives has literally 540,000 registered voters, give or take maximum of 2% or less. I mean, it's really done. That's why the districting is done throughout the country. That's why we just lost a representative in California, because of the decrease in our population. So 540,000 registered voters. And our district is amazingly split. It is probably the most evenly divided district out of 435 in the nation. As of the registration numbers that at the end of the year, after the last vote, 3,000 registered voters separated the Democrats and Republican parties. Out of 540,000 total. So our district has a dead even split between 35% Democrats, 35% Republicans, and then the other 30% is made up of just under 24% NPPs. I think it's 23.8 or 9%, and 6.1 or 2% of others. Those mean people who are still registered that I helped get to the Common Sense Party or the Forward Party California, or maybe the American Independent Party, or Green or Libertarian. So it's 35, 35, 30. And that, I believe, opens the door for a candidate and a person who has a life story similar to mine, that can get elected, because I'm going there as one of my major goals is to be a representative of all the people. And you hear that all the time. It's lip service, because as soon as they get elected, they go off into their office and they represent the party and the special interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's not anything I've been about, and I've got a lifetime and a proven integrity to that, and 15 years in the political reform movement to assure that. I'm going there to represent and try to be a bridge to bring people together, because I've always stated this from Rebellious Truths when I launched that in 2010 to today, that the answers will be found when the people will come together. And we have to, and that's where Rebel for Truth is my personal brand that I've had since 2011. That was my email URL that I still own, that got censored a few years ago when I was working for the Common Sense Party and the Forward Party. Google erased it. But a Rebel for Truth is somebody trying to be a bridge to bring people together, so that we can listen to each other respectfully and solve these problems. I don't go there to represent a party just because I have to wear a team jersey to get elected under the current rules.
I'm guessing when you decided to run, you contemplated running as a member of the Forward Party, or like, how did you decide? Because are you running as a Republican or?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about that decision.
It was a difficult decision, and without going into too much history of where I was, a former Republican, and back in the early 90s, I was considering to run for office. And then that's in our limited time. If I won't go into the details of why I left the party, but I left it because it no longer adhered to the principles of Lincoln, that why I was a Republican. So then that's where I was on this independent, trying to help get new parties into the system. I would have ran as an American Independent Party, because that was my latest junket, because the American Independent Party in California is unique, where that gives the people of California who don't want to wear a R or a D brand or jersey. The American Independent Party was everything I was fighting for the Common Sense Party, and what I believe Andrew Yang and the original concept of the Forward Party was. It's like the birth announcement of come as you are, come with principles, come with integrity, with a life story that backs up that, and you can believe anything you want as long as you're open-minded, you're responsible, and you're inclusive of others. The American Independent Party levels that playing field so that all the campaign finance laws in California that make it currently impossible for anyone who's not a part of a party to get elected, which is why we don't have any independents in any office, that levels the playing field and allows independent thinking people to get elected. I was invited in to help that newly launched American Independent Party in early May last year, but I was working on the Kennedy campaign, so I only was able to peripherally help them. But I made the decision to run as a Republican, and I'll try to make it brief. After the election, for 2+ months, I was getting calls from volunteers from Kennedy, from Common Sense Party and Forward Party. What are you going to do, Maxsetti? What should we be doing? And I told everybody, first and foremost, be patient and recognize that we've only just proven to the establishment that we've punctured their control. And I use the analogy from World War II. We've just landed on the beaches of Normandy. That was the first breakthrough in World War II. But until you scale those cliffs, and even then it's a long journey ahead. So be patient and know that the battle is going to intensify, because now they know we've broken through. When I was working with Ross Perot and back with that, we got close, but we didn't break through. Trump gave us this opportunity. We punctured their control, but that's all we've done. And now it's important that we go forward. So I sat down with my wife after 2 months of thinking about it and praying on it pretty much every day. What was the most important single thing I could do in this hopefully last marathon of my life, with the 15 years of political learning and inside of this effort from so many levels, and with my life story and journey, taking from a position of vast, not vast by some standards, of wealth and privilege that I had, to losing it all when I sold my business to an investment banker when I was in the middle of this effort, and had to go through, I went through personal bankruptcy. Very few of my friends ever knew what happened to me when I moved out of Laguna Beach, moved to the Newport Coast, and then downsized and became a renter here in Irvine. Was back in 2015, the business that I'd sold to devote full time to this effort, they bankrupted it, wiping out my wife's and my retirement. And so I had a choice: go back to work for somebody else to build back money, or figure out a way to stay in the fight. And I did. I started driving Uber. I drove Uber 4,000 plus rides. I drove for a limousine company. I started my own driving service so that I could stay in this fight and keep doing it. My wife started dog sitting, etc. But we made the decision on January 10th. I sat down with my wife after 2 months of thinking about it and said, this is what I believe God is asking me to do and what I believe I can do. And she agreed totally to support it. We had just got a small inheritance from an uncle that had just passed away that gave us the ability to not have to go back driving immediately. And we decided to take that money and use it to allow me to do this. My first 3 calls were with 3 people who ran for office, one who was a current state senator that I'd helped on their campaigns. And all 3 of them said, Michael, you've got 100% of our support, but you cannot win as an independent, even with American Independent Party at this time in this state. You've got to consider rejoining the Republican Party. So long story short, they all left me with that message. That night, I woke up restlessly at 2:30 in the morning, and I remembered an envelope that I used to have in my breast pocket when I spoke before Occupy group meetings, before I spoke before Tea Party groups, rebellious truce events. And it was an envelope, and I went and dug into my desk and found it. And this envelope that I found said, I am, and I believe, and it was in one of the rebellious truce envelopes. And inside of it, I'm not going to take too much time, but was from the 1993, when I was a delegate, when I was getting ready to potentially run for Congress. I was made a delegate by our congressman here in Orange County, Chris Cox. And I took this from the program and kept it. I am a Republican because, and then it goes through 8 of the beliefs. And if I were to read that to you, Tom, or 90% of the audience, what it was, if I didn't tell you it was a Republican, you'd say, what's that party? I'd love to join that party. It's all
read it. I'm curious because I am a former Republican. I don't recognize today's Republican Party, but tell me what the original Republican Party.
All right, I'll read a couple of them. I believe in equal rights, equal justice, and equal opportunity for all, regardless of race, creed, age, sex, or national origin. I believe that Americans value and should preserve that feeling of national strength and pride, and at the same time share with people everywhere a desire for peace and freedom and the extension of human rights throughout the world. I believe we must retain those principles of the past worth retaining, yet always be receptive to new ideas with an outlook broad enough to accommodate thoughtful change and varying points of view. I could go on, and I look at those and I go, that was the party that I believed in and was a member of. That party did not exist. And in 1993, I could go on about why, but I got exposed to, after a delegate, to the leadership, and they didn't represent that. I got invited to go out to an event out in Riverside a few weeks after that, to listen to these speakers. And there was a guy named B1 Bob or something, it was his name. And I listened at this convention for about 6 hours to what I was going to go through dinner. And I got up and left. And I came home back to Laguna Beach, and my wife, when I walked in the door at like 5 o'clock, she goes, I thought you weren't going to be home till 9. I said, I don't like these people. They disgust me. They're a bunch of racist bigots. And I started to pull away. And then that was in 1993. In 1995, February of 1995, I don't know, since Tom, you were a former Republican, you remember the guy, William Bennett?
Oh, yeah.
He was a drug czar, education czar, et cetera.
Yeah, Bill Bennett.
Yeah, Bill Bennett was being promoted and touted as going to be the next Republican candidate for president in 1994 and leading up. And I created an event for Children's Hospital in Orange County called Heroes of the Heart. And William Bennett was going to come out. He had published a book called The Book of Virtues, and he was going to come out and be the keynote speaker of the launch event for this. And so we were having dinner at the event, which sold out 1,000 people, and we raised over $100,000 net to the hospital, the biggest event at the time in the hospital's history. And he had just announced the week before that he was not going to run or accept the nomination for president. And I asked him, I said, Bill, why? And he goes, Mike, I've been in this political world. I've got 2 boys, one that's going to enter high school and one entering middle school. They need a father at this crucial junction in their maturation more than ever. I need to be a parent. It's more important to me than staying in the political arena for the next few years. My son had just turned 3, and I had made a promise after my wife and I had lost 2 children that if I ever got gifted with a child, I would leave the corporate world and put being a parent ahead of everything else. I had been a president of a division of American Standard. I was at that time in 1994, I was the COO of a division of a joint venture for Nissan and another Japanese company here in Irvine, built a plant and everything. Well, that rung with me the remembrance of that prayer and that promise. And 6 months later, I took an opportunity to resign as the COO and go off and start my publishing business so I could put being a parent ahead of making money, and withdrew from the political world and decided to focus on my son and my family, my daughter, and put parenting and the community ahead of politics. And I did that.
Michael, was there ever a consideration of running as a Democrat?
No, not in today's world.
Yeah, because the thing I struggle with is, as someone who's an advocate for more political parties and more competition in general, I find both parties today to be not really representative of the center of the country. And I'm curious, like those values that you read from 93, do you think that represents Trump's Republican Party today? I personally don't see that coming from him or his administration or his supporters. And I realize you and I kind of made different decisions in November, but tell me more about running as a Republican in 2025. Like, how do you feel about the current state of the Republican Party?
I'm glad you asked that question again to bring me back to the answer that I didn't give a complete answer for you on why I joined the Republican Party. I've joined the Republican Party to be a part of moving forward the new populist movement within the Republican Party. And when I say populist, that's a term that everybody's glomming onto. But populist means, quite honestly, a respect for the rights, the values, and the morals of everyday people, to represent everyday people, and a belief in their rights and their worth. And that's what populism is. I'm trying to be a part of expanding this populist movement within the Republican Party that can take these values, and these are represented by Kennedy, and some people out there I know that are from the Democrat side are going, Kennedy. Well, Kennedy and people like Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard and many others, but there's a populist movement within the Republican Party that I'm trying to be a part of expanding. I would hope that a populist movement would take hold within the Democratic Party, But the reason the Democratic Party, why I supported Trump and would have supported Trump over anyone practically, even no matter who was our candidate, because the Uniparty had clearly shown its head. When you had a democratic process to select Biden and then Harris and put them up as the anointed candidates for the Democratic Party of the people, and then at the convention, you have the daughter of one of the biggest warmongers in the recent history, who was one of the people who took the naive President Reagan down a long, difficult path. Dick Cheney, one of the worst warmongers in recent memory. And you have representatives of the military-industrial complex and the security state on stage at a Democratic convention endorsing a candidate. The Uniparty clearly showed their head. And I use the term establishment, and I want to make sure that the audience understands when I use the term, and most people use the term establishment, it represents those people and organizations who have benefited significantly from the status quo at the expense of the ordinary people. And that includes people from the administrative state who are all upset with DOGE, because I know that was one of the things you want to talk about, who are getting let go of the reorganization, or within the medical industry and all of the health and human services departments. It can mean those people who were either incompetent or chose to take their paychecks and look the other way, because America didn't get as unhealthy as we did overnight. 40% of Americans didn't get a chronic disease overnight. So these people charged with overseeing the health of America were either incompetent or corrupt. Either one, they need to go, and because they did not do their job. So establishment can be anybody from the people at the World Economic Forum who want to see a one world new globalist economy and see corporations as sovereign over our governments and over the people. Or it can mean those people at the lower levels of the administrative state who look the other way to collect a paycheck and go on, instead of saying, wow, why do we allow our corporations like Kellogg's and McDonald's to have a different formulation of a product that they sell here so they can make more money on the American people while they're helping us get sick, that they sell to Europe and the rest of the world? Those kind of things have to end. We have to make America healthy again. And that's why one of my 4 major immediate issues is to support MAHA, which is why I wore this shirt in recognition of that commitment to MAHA. So I hope
Michael,
I answered the question.
Yeah. And I'd love to, with the time we have left, I'd love now to shift from the kind of meta conversation about the two parties and picking a party and just jump into some of the hot potatoes that are floating around in today's world. And
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and try and get a sense of like how would you represent the district if you were in Congress today when these types of topics come up. So we'll start with the immigration stuff. So how would you evaluate the current Trump administration's activities around immigration? Would you push back on anything in particular, or would you feel like, no, this is the way we should go? We should do more of what's being done today.
No, on immigration, let me frame it as a goal. I believe we should have very wide gates but our system is pathetic, and it's pathetic because it's benefited both the corporations on one side and the Democratic Party on the other side. Our immigration system is pathetic, and it needs to be dramatically overhauled so that we can process people efficiently and effectively to allow immigrants into this country, as we all are mutts. We've all immigrated here at some point in time. But we have to have a secure border to know who's coming in and to be able to control that so that we don't have criminals and stuff coming in. So that is a job of Congress to have passed immigration laws. And in 1986, Tip O'Neill and President Reagan worked together with the both houses and passed a massive overhaul of our immigration system that never got implemented. And here we are all these years later dealing with an abysmal system that's not compassionate. And what Trump's approach is, I understand what they're doing, but I think it could be done significantly more compassionate and understanding. But the real root of the cause is the pathetic system that we have. And we've got people in this country who've been here, law-abiding citizens for years, raised their children, been here 20, 30 years, have made all the applications appropriate to get citizenship and never could get through the system. They're still in limbo, still waiting. Those kind of things are one of a major issue that I want to make sure that we address, and Congress does its job.
Michael, let's dig a little deeper here on a specific example. The one that everybody's talking about is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He entered the country illegally, was living in Maryland for, I think, over a decade or something, got married. He's now in a prison in El Salvador. And despite court ruling saying that, hey, you could deport him, but not to El Salvador for these reasons, but he's there. And I saw a Oval Office press conference where President Trump was like, well, there's nothing I can do. And then the president of El Salvador was smiling, saying, oh, there's nothing I can do either. To me, this is a very nuanced issue where this individual should not have broken the law, should have been deported in a way that was consistent with the law. But I don't think that's what happened. And that concerns me when kind of a superpowered executive branch can just kind of do things that the court system says you should not do.
I agree with what you just said. And I think it's wrong. But again, it points out the ludicrousy of our system and what it's been done. And courts and district judges and stuff like that should not have that authority. Supreme Court should, but it should have been addressed in Congress, and that's where it needs to be addressed with laws appropriate. But no, I agree with you. There needs to be a balance of compassion. I would use an example with Doge, and it applies to this in so much. You know, when you live in a house for a long period of time, 20, 30 years, you become accustomed to the fact that the appliances are way outdated. You become accustomed to and just accept how the plumbing doesn't work quite right, and you've got to do these little things in your house to make it work, but it's home and you're comfortable with it. And then you go visit your friend's new home and you see the dramatic difference at a dinner party at their house with their kitchen, their plumbing, their electrical lighting and stuff. And then you go back to your house and go, you know what? This house really does need a lot of work. We're going to do a remodel. And so you hire a contractor, you have a budget, you have a timeline, and the first thing that they start to do is they start the demolition. And when they start pulling off the drywall, pulling off those cabinets, pulling out that plumbing, all of a sudden the dry rot, the termites, the other damage, water damage, all this stuff starts showing. And occasionally they'll break a light fixture that you forgot to tell them, no, protect that, I want that. You didn't fix this, you broke it. But you have a choice then, now that you've uncovered all of or much of this rot and termites and stuff that would have collapsed your house had it continued, and it was collapsing it, and it wasn't efficient. You have a choice. You either suck it up and you live with what got broken and replace it as soon as possible, and you expand your budget and your timeline and finish the job, so that when you start the reframing and it gets finished, you go back and go, it was hell going through it. I hated every minute of it, but now it was worth every dollar of it and every day. We're at the demolition stage of our country. And after 249 years, approaching the anniversary, it is in need of a major remodel and update. And our founding fathers, the genius of them was they designed a system that was made to evolve with the growing and changing consciousness of our people and the challenges of our time. These two parties and other forces before them, but these two parties who've been in control of our system for the last, since World War II, dramatically, have ossified every one of those. When was the last time we had an amendment? When was the last time Congress had a balanced budget, and how many have they had in the last 4 years? You could go on with the litany for a long list of that has created the debt, the cost of living, this immigration. And these are the things I want to go back and fight for. I've chosen 4 things that are on my website that would have immediate impact on helping everyday people's lives get better. And in 4 elements that I believe strongly in that would help us in the long term that we need to address. I encourage people to go to the website maxsentiforcongress.com and go into more detail of what I stand for and what 8 issues I've chosen to focus on.
Michael, I agree with a lot of what you've discussed in this interview. I don't see the Republican
pushback.
Yeah, I don't see the Republican Party advocating for a balanced budget. I don't see them advocating for comprehensive immigration reform. They seem to be a bit of a rubber stamp for what happens out of the White House. I think even Senator Murkowski said that Republicans are afraid to challenge the president because they'll get primaried and thrown out.
Yeah, and that's the issue that both parties and the people in Congress, why the problem with these career politicians, because that's their job. And they only, once they get elected, after telling us everything we wanted to hear about what they were going to do, they go back and do nothing more than become rubber stamps for the leadership of the party. One of my commitments has been, and I've demonstrated it my entire life, is I'm not going there to take a knee to Donald Trump or anyone other than my God and the Constitution. Those are and my conscience. I want to make sure and do everything I can to help us get back on a path that the founding fathers laid out for us so that we can begin to move towards that more perfect union. And it's real important to understand I'm not going there to think that one freshman congressman can have this dramatic of an impact. That would be foolish. I'm part of a national effort. I'm one of 5 people on a leadership group behind the United Independent Movement. We've had conferences, 4 major conferences. Keynote speakers have gone everything from Marianne Williamson, Dennis Kucinich, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, etc. Kennedy would have been at the one in September had he not had to move over to endorse and become part of the Trump campaign. And Andrew Yang stepped in, and Forward Party was one of our major sponsors and has been. There is a national program that will be unveiled over the next 2 months to elect. Our goal is to elect hopefully 26 or more. Realistically, 5 would do the job, but people who are independent thinking people who could carry an independent label, an R label, a D label, G or L, whatever, and get elected, and who've committed themselves to a couple of key things. They've committed to work as part of a new independent caucus that would create a fulcrum. So no matter what the outcome in the general election is, neither party will be able to claim a majority without working through our caucus of independent thinking people who are not committed and beholding to the leadership of either party. They're beholding to the Constitution. They are people who have demonstrated with their life story integrity to these principles, not just come up with convenient words, because everybody can say, I'm for this or that, for populist, I'm for the. Words are meaningless if your actions of over time haven't demonstrated a true commitment to that. And thirdly, that they will work for systemic change and to get us back on track to the commitment to the pathway. And so I'm not going there as some lone wolf trying to be, crying out in the night. I'm going there as one of hopefully 5 to 25 new members of Congress who will go there committed to this effort. And I'm hoping that the people in my district who are so evenly split, who want to see solutions, and who want people who've demonstrated their knowledge of business and how to bring people together, and who can bring people together to work to find real solutions, effective solutions to the significant challenges we face.
All right, Michael, if you want, I'd love to talk for another 5-10 minutes and throw some more hot potatoes your way.
I got as much time as all I do. This is my life.
All right. Well, get ready. Let's talk about Ukraine. The current state is that I think Russia has said that this is not a war. It's a special military operation to fight anti-Semitism. But a lot of people feel like it is a war.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people feel that there's an aggressor and there's one that's defending itself. I'm of the mind that that Ukraine is defending itself against a literal invasion. And right now, I think Secretary of State Rubio has said, look, it's very complicated. And if we can't get a peace deal in the next few days, the U.S., I think to use his terms, will move to the margins. What's your read on this? I know there's no easy answer to this, but what would you be supportive of in terms of any role of the U.S. in this conflict?
First and foremost, peace at almost any cost. Peace. And the nuances behind the scenes of a bigger strategy is important, that we don't have access to make a definitive decision, other than the fact I'm in total support of a peace agreement to end the killing and end this and work towards peace. And again, the responsibility for this war falls on the UN and on the shoulders of America for pushing and breaking every agreement we made since the Berlin Wall came down, and our promises not to move NATO one step more east to the Russian border. We poked the bear too far, too deeply, and the bear roared back, and a lot of innocent, good people on both sides are being murdered needlessly, and it needs to come to a stop. But I'd like to pivot, if you don't mind, beyond that to Iran, because that's the newest issue that is rearing its head. And Trump does things that are totally out of character with what has been done and approaches of the past. But you've got to ask yourself, did any of those succeed? No. And I'm going to an event tonight, for example, for the Voices of Liberty. It's an Iranian group, people fighting for the people of Iran. These are Iranian organization, the Voices of Liberty, and they're wanting to overthrow the government there, the IRI, so that the people can again live in Iran. And Iran is at the crux of the Middle East problem that's not been able to be solved by how many presidents in a row and for thousands of years. So understanding a broader strategy is sometimes very important. I read a very detailed 15-page strategy analysis by the Iranian, this group. And when you read it, you see the strategy that Trump is apparently using, they believe in as a way to get Iranian people free again and get these oppressive dictators out of control. And that will hopefully become the linchpin to solving much of these issues of the genocide going on in the Middle East, so we can begin to solve these problems. So I don't want to go and make a bunch of statements without more knowledge on it of the bigger strategy, but we've got to solve these problems, and peace is the paramount issue.
So in the frame of peace supersedes everything, what would be your position on, I think a couple days ago, there were reports that Netanyahu had advocated a new bombing campaign over Iran that required significant U.S. support. And President Trump denied that support in hopes of seeking a peace deal with Iran. Are you of the mind that that was a good decision, or do you think the U.S. should take a more active role in disarming Iran militarily?
Well, not supporting Netanyahu on a bombing that would kill a lot of innocent people on this, I agree with Trump on the surface of what you just described and what we know. I would agree not to do that. I think Trump's very radically different approach than what we've seen from political leaders in the past is he has a very belligerent style of staking out a position and bludgeoning the opposition in words and in actions at first to get people to be willing to come and negotiate and understand that the extreme position he might articulate or even execute on it to a certain limited degree is a place to get action so that they will come to a table and you can make a peace agreement. And in the case of the IRI, it's not about peace. It is about bringing down and their control over Iran.
All right, let's move to one other topic, tariffs. So when President Trump ran, he said tariffs are, the most beautiful word in the American dictionary. And I was like, oh, that's not very Republican. But my MAGA friends told me, no, you anti-Trumpers, you take him too literally. You need to take him seriously, but not literally. But he has literally introduced historic tariffs, and the markets have responded very negatively. And now the Fed is saying, hey, because of the inflationary effect of tariffs, they're not inclined to lower rates right away. What's your read on the state of the American economy given these policies, and would you vote for legislatively making these tariffs permanent? Because right now they're just kind of executive orders that can be overturned by the next election.
Well, you asked a lot of nuanced questions there. First off, making things permanent, no, and passing legislation and to make things tariffs permanent, no. And again, to what some people have told you about his rhetoric, and I just mentioned it as well. The tariffs on the back after World War II, when tariffs began to be used again heavily, we allowed Europe and these countries that have been decimated by war to take advantage of our tremendous market. I mean, our market is something like 3 times China even, and huge. We are by far the most consumer-driven economy, way over everybody else. Everybody wants access to our market. Well, that was well and good to help rebuild Europe, Japan, etc. But now that was one of the reasons that Ross Perot said that great sucking sound of our jobs.
I remember.
It happened. It happened because it was far more profitable for people focused on only earning money for themselves, and that they moved offshore and cost us millions and millions of jobs. Well, the effect of all that over the last 20 years or so has been the decimation of the middle class, the loss of tremendous amount of jobs and well-paying union jobs. And so it's time to call a halt to these people that we've paid for. You go to Europe. We have rebuilt. We have allowed through these tariff and our trade policies for Europe to rebuild their entire countries. They have far more sophisticated, beautiful infrastructure functioning. Their people work far less hours than Americans. They live a far more comfortable, and this is the generalities, obviously, than the average American. Well, excuse me, folks, when all these German cars can get over here and be sold to us, and because they don't have but very minimal tariffs, and we try to sell a car of our company into their country, and it has huge tariffs, which makes it why you don't see any American cars for other reasons too, besides just price, but value. But you don't see that. It's time to level the playing field. And so all of those countries that we've helped rebuild that are economically in solid, not economically, that from a lifestyle standpoint are solid, and we need to say, folks, it's time to have zero tariffs and just let the market deal with it. Free market, true free market. For those countries that are struggling dramatically in Africa and other places to help lift their people up, I believe that there should be good tariffs to help them still. But in general, we should have, our goal should be zero tariffs on most of the world, and very few tariffs at all to help emerging countries bring their people up. So the issue that what Trump has done is say, in your face, we're tired of this. Our people paid with our lives and our livelihoods for your rebuilding of your countries after World War II. Now it's time, folks, for America to focus on helping everyday Americans. And the market has a problem with it because, oh yeah, gee, they're the ones who have gotten filthy rich over this period at the expense of the everyday Americans, and why the middle class has been decimated, because that money has been sucked up into the ownership class, and the taxations on a person's labor is far greater than a tax on somebody just sitting behind a desk saying, oh, I'll bet on this company or that company making financial trades. Their taxes that they pay for their effort and labor is significantly less. So does that sound like a Democrat there? That part of it very much should be. But I hope I gave you a far broader answer on tariffs.
Yeah, you did, Michael. And I appreciate the historical kind of perspective around the post-World War II reconstruction of Europe and Japan, and the reason why we were so pro-free trade and free access to the U.S. market, also as a means of a counterbalance against the Soviet Union's kind of spread of communism. And I agree with you that we're in a different world now in 2025, and we need to update a lot of things. I think my point is, and this goes for immigration as well, very broken system, needs complete comprehensive reform and real enforcement of the existing laws. All agree. But that's not what I'm seeing happening right now. What I'm seeing is tariffs on things like coffee.
Yeah.
Tariffs on things like avocados, where we have no interest in being an avocado producing nation, or we literally can't grow coffee in our climate. So why would we slap across the board tariffs on everything versus like a strategic approach where we say, okay, steel, advanced manufacturing, nuclear, automated production, like these are things that we want to lead the world, where for national security interests, like we have to protect and grow our domestic capabilities. But that's not what I saw on Liberation Day.
No. And I'll go back to two things. One is the example of the remodel, the demolition stage, and two, Trump's style of staking out outrageous positions to force people to the table. Because we've seen, I don't know the exact number, I've heard various from over 100 countries and 60 countries, whatever. Now all of a sudden say, okay, let's negotiate our tariffs. And so that's Trump's style. And I'll tell you what, taking it one step at a time, one little deal at a time, didn't get us anywhere. And it never happened because for lots of reasons. So Trump's style is abhorrent to me as somebody who's trying to bring people together. But you know what? I also have to have the patience to say trust. And with Trump, my attitude about Trump is trust and verify every day, every minute, every step that's going on. But at the same token, the old style and approaches didn't work. And I'm tired of seeing American workers decimated. I'm tired of seeing that. And our Congress, these career politicians getting elected, going along so they can stay in the game and not doing anything but being rubber stamps for the administration's thing so they can get reelected and just keep their job. And they go to the next cocktail party and they'll deal with it next month because they don't have some friend sleeping on the streets that's homeless. They don't have some family member who's got autism. They don't have somebody they know who died of fentanyl. So they just merrily go along their way, and that's got to change. And that's where this group of independent-minded new Congress people will go there working as a team so that we can be a fulcrum and force these changes. There's been legislation. For example, there's called the REINS Act, which is regulations from the Executive in Need of Scrutiny Act. It is called REINS, R-E-I-N-S Act. It's been proposed year after year, gotten passed in the House a couple of times, never gets implemented, never gets through the Senate because, oh my, Congress would have to do its job. The goal of REINS is to rein back in these executive orders and the executive wing of the government to rebalance our government back to where it was supposed to intend with checks and balances and good stewardship. Look at what was exposed in with Doge on the way our money has been spent. And the Congress was responsible for the stewardship of every one of those things. But did they do their job? Hell no. And they're not going to do their job until they're forced to. And they will be forced to when people like myself and others get in there and say, it's time to pass these laws. And if you don't, we're going to call you out to your constituents so you won't get reelected. And that's why the House of Representatives is up every 2 years, because they're supposed to be the closest representatives to the people. And the people are supposed to hold them accountable to actually take action and pass effective legislation to deal with these issues.
All right. I'd love to just hit a couple more before we wrap up. Let's talk about balanced budgets. There's an inbound hot potato, which will likely be I think as President Trump calls it, a big, beautiful bill, which will make permanent the previous tax cuts from his first administration for the wealthiest Americans. And my view is that's not going to increase tax revenue and will likely result in a larger deficit. So I'm a little bit of an old school Republican back in the day where the party was for fiscal responsibility. What's your read? I know other people will argue, well, if you lower taxes, like in the long run, you'll make it up on volume. I've heard that argument before. Tell me what you think.
Well, I have read some of the details of that tax, and I think being framed that it is a tax cut for the rich is missing a lot of it, because it was a lot of tax cuts for others. But again, without getting into the real details of the weeds that we don't really have, we were hearing sound bites and generalizations purposefully meant to mislead or create an impression. I have on my issues, Washington is spending away our future. I have 6 very specific ways to deal with this that have been suggested and brought up, never implemented. Zero-based budgeting, for example. Make every program prove its worth, and every program should have a sunset law on it. And this is where the stewardship of Congress should be doing their job. Second, full federal audit. Where in the hell are these audits? Thank you for bringing it up on screen there. Balanced budget amendment. There's been a proposed balanced budget amendment for years. I mean, it goes back a lot of years, and a lot of states have supported it, and it's been blocked in Congress and not dealt with at all. Debt to GDP cap, set maximum rates, and end inflationary spending. Require impact reviews before passing this bill. Every bill should have an impact review done on it. What is it going to do to the cost of living? what is it going to do to raising or affecting our debt, so that they do effective job. When I ran the Division of American Standard and Nissan and my own business for 20 years, my own publishing business, you had to adhere to sound financial principles and stewardship so that you could stay in business and make a profit. And lastly, on the 6 ways to help fix this is if Congress doesn't do their job to pass a budget on time, they forfeit it. And that doesn't get retroactive like in California. Oh, if it goes on 3 months, that pay that they gave up for 3 months, oh, it gets retroactively repaid. Bullshit on that. You don't pass the budget on time, you don't get paid till you do your job. Just like you wouldn't get paid at work doing it. So I'd like you, since you're on my issues page, if you would scroll down to this issue of corruption, and then open up that big money's control. I list here 6 issues that I've been talking about for 15 years, most of these. Every one of these: no Congressional Insider Trading Act, allowing themselves and their families to profit off the laws. They ignore lifetime congressional integrity, allows that revolving door to lobby jobs, etc. I'm not going to read them all to you. These laws, all 6 of them, have been brought up repeatedly over the years and never get passed. And they would dramatically have an impact on Congress to help ensure that they begin to pass laws that are effective and meaningful, and not going there for a career in Washington to get rich. How does people go there and on that salary go into Congress? And I don't know the exact numbers, but I am going to pick on one most recent, AOC. She was a supposed bartender. And supposedly the numbers I've heard recently thrown out that she's now worth somewhere between $23 and $26 million. And she's been in Congress, what, is it 5 years now? Or is she, and she's gone from a bartender to worth that? And Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, it's equal on both sides. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against the Democrats. I'm against the leadership of both parties who have not passed these kinds of laws. And this is a focus of this independent movement, is to pass these kinds of laws to end the corruption, the control of big money over Washington. But again, I can't do it alone, but I can be one of a group that has committed themselves to this. And we've got people like groups like No Labels and others part of us. And we've got some members currently in Congress that are behind the scenes working with us. This is not a lone wolf effort. This is not just me saying this. I'm part of a national effort to go there to do this. But we need the support of the people to elect people like myself and others to go there to fight on their behalf and make these kind of changes.
I love this list, Michael. I think the thing that I'm trying to reconcile is I've not heard the current MAGA movement talk about these reforms. It's more about settling the score with law firms who worked on the, smart, the voting machine stuff, or it's about rounding up people who wrote editorials against the Israeli bombing of Gaza. It's about, Garcia, whatever. No one in MAGA is talking about a balanced budget.
I'm so grateful for that question. And hopefully the audience is staying with us. You're absolutely right. And when I went up to the GOP convention in Sacramento, as I've said earlier, there is a movement within the current Republican Party towards populism and getting back to the principles that I talked to earlier. But there's a dramatic chasm inside the party between the MAGA cult, I refer to it as, that no matter what Trump does, it's great. And I spoke up at a resolutions meeting there with a point that I'm going to pound away at. MAGA, make America great again? No, make America great for all. And we have to focus on expanding beyond MAGA again to make America great for all. And this is a big battle going on inside the Republican Party. Is Trump our new monarch and king, or is he a president doing his best to open the door and make these changes knowing the forces we're up against? Or are there areas that need to be reined in and stopped and ensured? And that's where Congress needs to begin to do their job to take back the control. And that REINS Act, as I mentioned earlier, is exactly one of the ways to do it, along with other specifics on there, because we've got to make sure that we get back on path to the Constitution and then modernize our government and move forward.
All right. I have one last question from the live chat. How will your appointment to Congress help forward the MAHA agenda?
Oh, thank you.
Team Kennedy asks him.
There's Kennedy is one of, and Charles Eisenstein would be the other, one of two people that I admire most living that I know in this world. MAHA is something that I will go to Congress to make sure to codify the kinds of legislative changes that are necessary, that Robert Kennedy is leading and bringing forth, because Make America Healthy Again is one of my 4 core principles, and probably the one that motivated me the most to get into the arena, to take on this challenge, because I actually participated in 139 events between May 7th and November 5th in Southern California that were on behalf of Kennedy, and then the last 6 weeks or so on behalf of Kennedy and Trump in support of MAHA. We must make America healthy again, because our health, if we don't have our health, we are a burden on those we love, and that's not what we want to be. And if we're not willing to fight for our children and future generations, then who are we? What are we? And that is why I and people around the community know me. When I'm out getting my exercise, I'm wearing a MAHA shirt almost every day, and I have been since May of last year, because it's that important to me.
Well, Michael, I really appreciate you coming back on the show. It's been a great dialogue, and I really hope that that if you make it over there, that you will continue to speak truth to power and not take a knee to the party politics that seem to be dominating DC right now.
Well, I think even though we haven't known each other on a close personal basis, but you've observed what I've been working on for 15 years. And before that with Children's Hospital, with my community. That's where I'm not going there to start a career. I'm going there to cap off my career and hand off and open the door for young people, something I've been working towards and doing all my adult life, is trying to open doors for young people to emerge. And one last thing I'd like to end it on, because I am an older person, the balance between the need for the youthful energy and idealism and vision from the youth is crucial to be an integral part of everything we do. But it must be tempered with hopeful wisdom from people like myself and others of life experiences, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that have been made by many others, and that we've made in our lives, that we can help open the door and make it so that they can be effective. And that's one of my commitments, is to the youth. And it was with Common Sense Party, it was with Forward Party, it was with Children's Hospital, it was with the community of Laguna Beach. And I'm committed to that. And that's why I'm not going there for any long-term thing. I'm going there to open the door for others and get these changes so that our future generations can have the opportunity to live a sweet of life that I was given the opportunity to. And it was out of a sense of gratitude for that I began this journey 15 years ago, was based on the gratitude of what I had had the opportunities to do.
I love it. I hope you'll come back on the show when you make it to the top 2 out of the primary.
Tom,
I appreciate you willing to take the hot potato questions as well.
Tom, I enjoy very much the questions and time with you. And I look forward to that opportunity.
All right, my friend. Have a great rest of your day and happy Easter weekend.
You as well.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
All right. I have some thoughts on my conversation with Michael just now. But before I do that, let me just give a shout out to the supporters of the Nerds for Humanity channel. I need to give you guys some music. Hold on. All right. Hopefully you can hear that. And hopefully you can still hear my voice. I think there was some setting before that was blocking out my voice when the music's playing. So let me know if you can hear me. But let's go and thank our members. So we're going to start. And if you want to support this channel and keep this thing running, I think we're at 5 years now that this channel has existed. So our biggest supporter is Soldier One. He is a member of the Nerd Cabinet. You can join as well. Just click the join button on YouTube. And it helps pay for our streaming costs, podcast hosting fees, that kind of thing. The members of the Nerd Congress are Kristen Slevin, Bike, and Zig PC. And then we have our city council members, Gene, David, DK, Jack Lego, Mr. History, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Brittany, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Jackson, Unkiu. And then here are our registered nerds, and that's only $1.99 a month. So thank you to all of you for supporting this content and helping us keep this channel running. I'll keep producing stuff if you guys keep supporting the channel. By the way, let me know in the comments if you've been enjoying my This Freaking Guy short videos, because I've been doing those a few times a week, and they're a lot easier to do during the work week than these long live streams. Okay, so some quick closing thoughts. First is that I really like Michael. I think he has very noble intentions, and he's advocating for a lot of common sense reform. As you could probably tell from the interview, I am not sure that today's MAGA party will support those positions. I think today's MAGA party supports whatever Trump wants to tweet about, and that's it. I'll give you an example. When was the last time you saw Trump tweet about chronic disease in America, about diabetes and epic levels of obesity, hypertension, and reforming and preventing those things from happening to our people? I don't think that's top of his list, even though he did kind of say that he was going to make MAHA part of his administration. And you might argue, well, hey, RFK's there, but is RFK empowered to do a lot of the stuff that he campaigned on? Like, I haven't seen it yet. I see more about shaking down Johns Hopkins and Columbia and Harvard, or rounding up people and putting them in El Salvadorian prisons without due process against court orders. I see Doge restating its savings, sometimes from billions to millions, no real plan. And then I see no path to a balanced budget. So for me, I have mixed views. Part of me feels like, well, if Michael's going to be advocating for that stuff, let's get him in there. And maybe he could be one that's going to actually speak to these things. The other part of me is like, well, he's running as a Republican. The Republican Party is going to expect certain things from him. But maybe he could be kind of like a disruptor from the inside. And then I wonder, like, well, is his district, are registered Republicans in that district looking for someone that's going to be principled that way? Or are they looking for someone who's going to wear the red jersey and do whatever, the Trump White House says? So I'm actually on the side of hoping Michael gets there, and I hope he succeeds in his campaign, because I do think he's not there to just like, genuflect and just kind of ask how high when Trump says jump. But I don't know how the Republican primary process works, whether he's going to get support and funding, and whether the voters on the street want a independent-minded candidate. I hope they do. So that's why I'm rooting for Michael. And hopefully he makes it to the top 2 and we can get him back on the Nerd Show. But let me know what you think. Like, if he had decided to run as a Democrat and basically say, hey, the Democratic Party has gone too far and we need to come back to like a center-left approach that's a little bit more Bill Clinton, maybe a little bit more Obama, that would have been kind of interesting. But I don't think that was where Michael's kind of intuition led him, and I respect that. There are a lot of problems with the Democratic Party, and there might have been also like other Democratic candidates who are going to take that lane. So maybe Michael's taking I'm going to run as a Republican, but I'm not a, blind follower of MAGA and Trump. I have principles and I'm an independent-minded person. And wouldn't it be amazing if someone like that actually won? So hopefully, if you're watching from California's 47th district, you want some independent-minded leadership. And if you're watching from elsewhere and you like Michael, go check out his campaign. Maybe you could volunteer or donate. We'll definitely be watching him closely, and hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And with that, we'll say bye, nerds. Oh, one last thing. If you can't become a member, definitely like this stream, because it helps the algorithm share the conversation more broadly. And then if you like these conversations, but you're like, hey man, I can't sit for an hour and a half long thing, look at my Substack, Fireside. Oh, that's the wrong address. Hold on. Well, if you're interested in technology, I have a whole nother channel about technology. But if you want the politics, it's nerdsforhumanity.substack.com down here. And what that does is it'll give you a emailed summary of all my interviews. It'll have the video, but also a text summary that you can kind of scan really quickly for the key sound bites. And it helps support the channel. Basically, the bigger the audience I have on YouTube and on Substack, the more guests I can pull in of like national stature. So thanks in advance for all your support. And thanks again to our channel members. Bye, nerds.